Hey, Michael.
Yes.
What was the last movie released on VHS?
That was actually A History of Violence, a New Line Cinema film. Was the last to be released on VHS in 2005. And if you still have a copy of it, you could collect about $75 for it because of its historical significance. History. Coincidence? Alright, so I'm going to tell you guys, this video is my top 6 favorite movies by my favorite directors. This isn't in any particular order. I'm just going to do 6 of my top favorites. I chose 6 because I couldn't pick just 5. There was these 6 directors, and I was like, I can't take any of them off my list. So we're going to do top 6. There's a couple filmmakers that if you know me, you'll be like, Michael, where are they in this list and stuff like that. But it's because I don't like every single film that they've ever made. These 6 directors that I've chosen, I like every single movie that they've ever made. So yeah, I'm going to go into it. First pick is going to be Casino by Martin Scorsese. My favorite Martin Scorsese movie. He's one of my favorite directors. Now, here's the catch. I haven't seen every single thing that he's done. But every single thing that I've seen that he's done so far blows my mind. So maybe when I see more of his movies, I'll be like, I didn't like this one. And he'll fall down my list. But for right now, he's my top 6. But Casino is easily my favorite. Casino has like the big long story, you know, that like Goodfellas and his other mafia movies share, but it's also got like a lot of the violence and action and a lot of the poignance of his movies, you know, of his mafia movies kind of comes in here when you see how violent the mob actually is and their presence in Vegas. Is another kind of example of just a great story well told. Like it's, you know, it's a long ass movie, but there's not a single frame wasted. The whole movie is great, keeps you going in that story, great acting. This movie, honestly, when you put it on, it feels like 90 minutes, it's fucking over. It's 3 hours. It's super, super good. So that's my favorite Scorsese movie. I love all of his movies, but this one is the best to me. Then we got Oh Brother, Where Art Thou by Joel and Ethan Coen. Technically directed by Joel Coen, but the Coen brothers, they work together on movies. They write all their movies together. And this one's my favorite one. I like The Big Lebowski almost as much. I like Fargo almost as much. But this one would have to be my favorite just because, like, I feel like this movie's like the equivalent of, like, comfort food for me. Like, it may not be the best, but it's the one that I enjoy the most. I can pretty much quote every single line in this movie. I've watched this movie countless times with my family. So when I watched it, kind of reminds me of that, too. Like, growing up, like, my family, we used to watch this movie all the time. And it's just such a easy to enjoy movie. I feel like you can put this movie on for pretty much anybody in any walk of life, and they'll find some kind, like something that they'll stick to that they'll enjoy about it. It's a really good movie. It's really funny. It's actually a retelling of Homer's The Odyssey, but in the, what is it, the 30s, I think? In like the 30s-ish, and, you know, dealing with prisoners and stuff like that. But that's something you don't even have to know. You don't have to be familiar with the Odyssey or anything to get it. I actually didn't know that until a history teacher told us. He's like, hey, you know that fucking Oh Brother, Where Art Thou shit? It's the Odyssey. And I was like, yo, I should have known that because it says it in the credits. But this is a great movie, and also one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. I'm super into music. I'm a musician myself, so music in a movie is like super important to me. And I love the soundtrack, and the music just goes so well. Another little quick fact about this movie that's really interesting is this was the first movie, to my knowledge at least, that used digital color grading. Before this movie, it was practically unheard of, and it's been used in every single movie ever since. Oh God, I almost dropped them. Next, The Shining is my favorite Stanley Kubrick film. Stephen King would disagree with me. Stephen King actually hates this movie, which is a little factoid, because it's so different from his book. But Stanley Kubrick really makes it his own. This is a great movie. This movie's terrifying. It's the kind of movie that if you watch it with a group of people, it's not very scary, and it can be easy to make fun of even because it's a little weird and slow. But if you watch this movie, I guarantee you, no matter who you are, if you watch this movie alone at night, you're going to be afraid to go take it out of the DVD player. Like, it's spooky as fuck. You're going to be like, oh shit, I don't want to get up off the couch right now. Really creepy, really unsettling. I like how underexplained everything is in this movie. I love all of Kubrick's films. Again, it's kind of like with Scorsese that I've seen so far. There's a few I haven't seen. Mostly his older 50s and 60s, early 60s work I haven't seen. But I've seen all of his stuff from like the 70s and up. and just this one has always been my favorite one. And if you can get the 4K, because it looks amazing. I've always thought that the DVD and Blu-ray kind of look like crap, and once I got this, I was like, this is the way to view The Shining. So really good restoration there. Okay, I'm gonna save that one for last, because I think if I had to pick a number one director of all time, you'll know I'll save it for last. All right, so next we got David Fincher. David Fincher is an outstanding director. Literally, his films are all perfect. Even controversial hot take, I don't think Alien 3 is as bad as people say. I think it's one of the better Alien movies. I think it's a lot better than Alien Resurrection. Not as good as 2 and the first one, but it's probably the third best. It's a great movie. Fight Club is easily David Fincher's best. Fight Club, back when I was younger, was my favorite movie of all time, hands down. Love this movie. But as I've gotten a little older, I found other films that I like better, but this film will always have a special place. This movie is amazing. I feel like this movie is really good for teenage boys to watch. Like, if you're a teenage boy and you're like 16 years old, this movie is amazing, and it's impossible for it not to hit you, because I feel like every teenage boy struggles with this kind of masculinity complex where it's like, oh, you have to be an alpha male or you're a fucking pussy. And like, this movie really is kind of a parody of that whole macho man shit, but it's kind of disguised as a macho movie. So it's really easy for stupid people to think that this movie's just, oh, it's fucking badass and that's a manly ass movie. But then if you actually stop and think about it, it really shows that people like that are fucking stupid. And it's also a really, really great commentary on consumerism, too. So, me being into punk rock and anarchy and all that kind of shit. Not real anarchy, just, anarchy in the UK and shit. But, this movie is really, really fucking good. Fires on all cylinders, perfectly directed, a great story, really good twist at the end. Fight Club, David Fincher. It was actually hard for me to pick a favorite David Fincher movie because all of his are so fucking good. Then we got, so here's where I am ranking. I got my number 2 favorite director and then my number 1 after this. But my second favorite director of all time is Kevin Smith. And Clerks is my favorite film by Kevin Smith. Now, I know that some people, film scholars maybe, would say that Kevin Smith is not a good director, and it's not that he's a great director. Like, most of his movies are just shot, reverse shot. But I feel like he's funny as fuck. Like, his scripts are so funny. And he manages, like, this could kind of seem like an artsy movie, but it's not pretentious at all. Like, it feels like the kind of movie that a 20-year-old would make because he's sick of his job in retail. And the more you work in retail, the funnier this movie is. This movie is pretty much... the things that they say to customers is the things that I fantasize about saying all day. It's so funny. And then Kevin Smith as a director, he's my favorite because he's so down to earth. I love each and every one of his movies, even though the thing is, I know some of his movies suck. And when I watch them, I'm like, this movie sucks. Like, Yoga Hosers, that's a trash movie. As much as I hate to admit it, Tusk is a bad movie. But I love it. I have a fun time watching it. I actually think, even though Tusk manages to be his worst movie, I could also argue that it's his best movie, because it's the kind of movie that only Kevin Smith could make. And it's so funny. And you can search the entire planet. You're never going to find a movie like that. And that's really cool. But we're not talking about Tusk. We're talking about Clerks. And this is my favorite. Also because of the backstory behind the making of this movie, As somebody who eventually wants to make movies, like, that's why I talk about movies all day. Those who are failed filmmakers just sit on YouTube and talk about movies. It's like, failed athletes just end up teaching gym. So I have always wanted to be a director, and, he made this movie with his friends for $5,000 or some shit. And that's so inspirational. In the same way that, like, Evil Dead is inspirational. And Sam Raimi's not on this list because Sam Raimi has made a decent amount of poop movies. And we got to admit that to ourselves. For every great Sam Raimi horror movie, there's that fucking Western, The Quick and the Dead. What was that? That's trash. But yeah, Clerks, Kevin Smith, second favorite filmmaker of all time. And, I'm putting him here. My number 1 favorite director of all time, drumroll please, Quentin Tarantino. And my favorite movie by my boy Quentin is Inglourious Basterds. It is so hard for me to pick a favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. It's like picking your favorite child. but this is my favorite child. This movie is so good. I love World War II. I love war movies. I love Quentin Tarantino, and this is such a perfect movie in my opinion. It's got such a great story. It's got such great dialogue. It's sometimes I feel like, especially with Tarantino's more recent work, sometimes the humor can clash a little with the scene at hand, but this blends his sense of humor with the violence so well. This is before he went a little too over the top, even as much as I love these films. Sometimes he goes a little bit over the top in the grindhouse direction, which I love when he does that, but it doesn't make for a perfect film. This has just enough of that, like, over-the-top, grindhouse, balls-to-the-wall sensibility, but it's reined in enough to be a great film that most people can watch, even non-Tarantino fans. It's got some of the best dialogue he's ever written. The scene in the beginning where Christoph Waltz is talking to the Jewish man, kind of like interrogating him. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, and it's pure dialogue. And it's amazing. This is... I have super fond memories of seeing this movie in theaters too, because it was the first like movie trailer that this is the first Tarantino movie I saw in theaters, and it was the first movie trailer that I saw, and I literally counted the days until the theatrical release, because I was like, that is such a great idea for a movie. Like I legitimately cannot wait till this movie's released. I remember the movie, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh my god, like 5 months, I'm gonna see the best movie of all time. And I literally, every day for that 5 months, I was like, man, I hope I don't die today, because I will die without seeing Inglourious Bastards. And that's really stupid, but that's how your brain works when you're that age. It completely lived up to every expectation. The music choices, again, that's another thing. Being a musician, love music in movies. Quentin Tarantino's music choices in Inglourious Bastards is so crazy, but they all work insanely well. I never thought David Bowie being used in a World War II film would be pitch perfect, but holy shit, when you see him prepping to burn down the theater with the Nazi in it, Nazis, plural, and Hitler, in the theater, and fucking Cat People by David Bowie is playing, that is a cinematic history moment. It's so fucking good. So yeah, Tarantino, my #1 favorite director, and this is my favorite movie by him. So yeah, that is my video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you have a good night. And, you can cry in the comments if your favorite director didn't get picked or whatever. I don't give a fuck.